Alright, guys, so we have this super cool conversation between Sam Harris and Mr. Weinstein. Uh, I actually don't know if this is Eric or Brett. I get them mixed up all the time. But uh, Mr. Weinstein here brings up actually a very, very good point, and he's almost correct, but he comes to the wrong conclusion. And yeah, we'll talk about that.
I think there will be a solution that could be brought to scale at some point to make this easy and workable for everybody.
Can I get in on that one?
Yeah.
There's a way in which I think this question it results from a conflation of two issues. Factory farming is indefensible, and the suffering of farm animals is appalling. And meat is also a way a way of feeding ourselves that spends the resources of the planet very quickly and is indefensible at an environmental level. But neither of those problems is unsolvable. And the issue of whether or not it is okay to eat animals seems to me that we get it wrong. That in fact, farm animals have a long-standing partnership, a mutualism with human beings, and it's a good deal for them if they are raised in conditions that are not inhumane. It's hard for us to wrap our minds around that because the idea of suddenly being slaughtered one day for meat isn't a very pleasant one. But from the point of view of, let's say, a chicken compared to the jungle fowl that it evolved from, there are far more chickens on Earth today than there ever were jungle fowl. And they've been with us. They will be with us long after the jungle fowl has been driven extinct by habitat loss. And so thinking about these creatures as our partners and recognizing that we have an obligation not to treat them in ways that make them suffer seems to me the right answer to that problem. And then there's a question of how much meat is the right amount with respect to the sustainability issue. But
Okay, so he has the correct idea here. The idea that more net positive lives is a good thing. So I don't take the view that a lot of vegans do that the end goal is to just eliminate eliminate the breeding of all animals, right? No, I think that if they are going to have net positive lives, then we actually ought to breed them, right? So I'm actually with Brett on this. Now, he kind of makes the wrong assumption that farming for meat gives animals net positive lives. And I believe later on Sam Harris actually makes this claim as well.
But I don't think our obligation to farm animals is to drive them extinct by not eating them anymore.
Yeah, agreed. And this is actually why I support, one of the main reasons I support pet ownership, because we're incentivizing the existence of animals to have positive relationships with humans, giving them net positive lives, and putting them in sort of this environment where we're not incentivizing like the existence of like wild animals who are going to suffer, or like the existence of like factory farmed animals, but as we're incentivizing like responsible pet ownership, we're incentivizing net positive lives for dogs and cats and things.
More.
Well, and just to add one.
And by the way, like, as I've said before, this is true for zoos as well. We can have theoretically, and we even already have this in practice in certain aspects, ethical zoos. That way, you can actually have the sort of aesthetic of the wild, like wild animals, but then give them, at least for certain animals, give them net positive lives in captivity.
Point to that is that becomes ethically, that would in fact be the right answer if farm animals had net positive lives. So if the life of a cow on a farm was a life worth living, if it was better than non-existence, right? So again, because you're talking about phasing out billions upon billions of creatures if we no longer eat them. So if it were in fact,
yeah, that's, again, I want to emphasize this because a lot of vegans take the view that we ought not to bring animals into existence, and that is, billions and billions of creatures that would have experienced it if we hold to the if we assume that they are going to be giving net positive lives, right? That is billions and billions of animals that will not be receiving pleasure, which I think is intuitively at least very bad thing.
Better to exist as a cow and then die in this way at some point. And granted, it does not seem to be the case at all now. Then that would be an argument for it. Our intuitions could go in different ways on that.
Yeah, so this is where they get it wrong. They get it wrong in that it seems like they assume that farming animals for meat, that slitting their throat or throwing them into slaughterhouses is how we incentivize their existence. But again, right? There are animals that exist, and we've incentivized their existence, and we've done that without incentivizing we've done that without appealing to some sort of violent act, right? So dogs and cats, for example. Now, there's a lot of issues that go on with pet ownership, and we can address these issues, right? But the idea that we've incentivized the existence of dogs and cats, and we've done it not by incentivizing violent action, like putting them in slaughterhouses. What we've done, or what we've at least attempted to do, is incentivized positive, responsible relationships with our companion animals. And I think we should do something very similar to with farm animals. I think we should incentivize pet pigs. I think we should incentivize pet cows. I think we should incentivize ethical zoos or ethical sanctuaries, where we are incentivizing net positive lives, and we're doing it through non-violent non-violent fuel. So Mr. Weinstein here is almost correct. He just gets it wrong that we should use sort of like slaughterhouses as for that incentive. Now, here's another aspect, and why that would be problematic is that when the product is violent, it doesn't take much longer for that to bleed into the net positive life. So it's like, an example I can think of is like a lot of these factory farms started as backyard farms and then grew to be factory farms. And if your incentive isn't to give net positive lives, but simply just to create animals so you can then, sell them for profit, if the incentive is not the net positive life, then eventually there won't be a net positive life there. So again, we incentivize positive relationships between the animals, like responsible pet ownership. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.